Let's make a junk journal cover from scratch. Hi, this is Luise Heinzl. Nice to see you here today. It again escalated a little bit, but these pages want to have a home so that these pages are not only pages but a journal in the end. If you follow me already, then you know that this is like a little time travel because you have seen the finished journal already in my paper premiere, which happened a few days ago here on my channel. That calms me down a little bit because that means that I have something in the end, yeah, at the end of this day, because you have already seen it. To be honest, filming a junk journal cover tutorial or a process, this is probably not really a tutorial, but a process video, is really, really hard because there are so many like uncontrollable steps and things, yeah, also things that everyone does a little different. But I want to try with this video to answer the most possible amount of questions you had in the past. And I also want to do something with this cover I had also for my last journal, which was the Tattered Bunny collage book. And there I had a spine which was curved and I had these little strips on the spine. And many of you have asked how I did that, especially how I got the spine curved. So we are going to try this again for this journal because, yeah, I also think that the dimension... what is this? I'm so sorry. That the dimensions of this journal really do a curved spine, but you could also do it, of course, this flat if you don't like a curved spine. But if you look at this and you imagine that this is later on like so, and this piece obviously here, then it would make a lot of sense to have this curved because imagine it would be straight. That would look like a box somehow. I mean, you could do it like this. I have often done it with this width of a spine, which is, by the way, 3 inches. Very often, yeah, I did it like this, just with the straight spine. But with this fluff here and this raggedy look of this journal, I think it makes sense to make the spine curved and put a little bit of effort into that process, but it's not so hard. If you have never done it before, don't freak out. It's not so hard. So let me give you some measurements and information. So I have 5 signatures in total. Each signature has 4 papers folded in half. So each signature is like this. 1, 2, 3, 4 papers. So that later on the binding will be here. So 4 full pages folded in half. This journal is something special, to be honest, because all of the pages in this journal, at least until now, are the full size of DIN A5, and that is the half of DIN A4, and DIN A4 is the paper size we have here in Germany and I think in the most places in Europe as well. You could do this with letter size paper as well, then just, you know, fold the letter size paper in half and you would just have nearly the same thing. Regarding the thoughts which are behind here. Yeah, the thickness would be the same, the amount of signatures would be the same, and the measurements for your cover would be slightly different, but you could easily transfer that to the letter size paper as well, of course. So then I want to have, and here I'm now mixing inch and centimeters because that is the easiest way for me to do that. I found that out just recently. I think with the bunny journal, I found that out that is way easier for me than thinking only in centimeters or only in inches. Perhaps you want to try that as well because, yeah, perhaps it's easier for you as well. And especially if you have something like this, like a grid mat or so, which has inches and centimeters. Try to use that. Yeah, try it out. Perhaps it's easier for you as well, and perhaps it's a help for you. So I want to have half of an inch in between of the signatures and also here. So that means half of an inch here between the cover piece and the last signature, and then here half of an inch between each of the signatures, and then again here half of an inch until the other cover is here. So that means In centimeters, that would be approximately 1 centimeter. But as I said, I go with inches here. But you can, vary that a little bit if you want. Then the cover pieces, since my papers here are DIN A5, I lined this up here. And now I have 1/2 centimeter here, 1/2 centimeter here. Why centimeter? Because I have a paper trimmer where I can trim this thick cardboard here, and there it's easier for me to read centimeters than inches. That is the only reason why I have centimeter here instead of inches. But you could also do 1/4 of an inch here and 1/4 of an inch here. That is approximately half of a centimeter, 0.5 centimeters. Yeah, that is approximately the same. 1/4 of an inch and 0.5 centimeters, that's approximately the same. And to be honest, who cares if this is a millimeter more or less? Yeah, no one cares. And here I also have 1/4 of an inch / 0.5 centimeters more than the pages are wide. So then our spine has the same height like the cover pieces, obviously. And this is 3 inches because, as I said, I want to have 1/2 inch in between of the signatures. I can quickly make a little sketch here. So the first signature would go here, the second here, the third here, the fourth here, and the fifth here. Oh, did I mention that I have 5 signatures? I don't think so. 5 signatures with 1/2 inch distance. Then we have 3 inches for the spine. So then the next thing is I want to have fabric. Where's the other piece now? I want to have fabric on the outside and the inside of my cover. Since I don't know yet if I want to have the same fabric on the outside and the inside, I will now prepare 2 pieces which have exactly the same size. If I then decide that I only need 1 and take something else for the inside, yeah, then I have a piece which fits my next journal. So what I'm going to do is, first, I'm trying to not freak out that this fabric is not a rectangle. Because my problem, and that is always my problem, but I will tell you my solution as well. Look, here you can see the fabric is not a rectangle. It is not 90 degrees. No matter what I cut here, I mean, I could, well, let's just try it so that you can see my reality. If I would say, okay, this is straight, and I cut in here and tear it, hoping that I will get a 90-degree angle, that will probably not happen. Yeah, and it doesn't happen. Look, because somehow this fabric is weird. It's just totally wonky. And when I put this here, I face the problem that I would either have to cut with my scissors here along here. That is something I don't want to do, at least not for this journal, because I want to have it really fluffy and with these frayed edges here. Or I would need to find a way to make this a rectangle. And I mean, how would you do that? My solution is just place it so that it is parallel here to this thing. Or what you also could do is place it that it is parallel to the other side. Yeah, that would also be a solution. And then leave enough room here. Just like so. Here I want to leave a little bit as well. Perhaps even a little bit more. This is now approximately a little less than 1/2 inch. Then I place this here with more distance I will need later. Why? I want to make sure that my fabric is really big enough. It happened so often to me that I have placed, when I tried to measure the fabric, my my cover pieces like so, like they will be approximately in the end. And then with dyeing the fabric, with ironing the fabric, somehow the fabric got smaller and then it was not big enough. For me, it's easier when I have a lot here and a lot here, which is overlapping. I can always shorten that later, but if it's too small, yeah, then, you can throw an F-bomb. And we don't want that, even if we need that sometimes. So we're going to do it like this, even if we know that this distance is going to be way smaller later. And then I cut in here. Also with here, it's also approximately 1/2 inch. And also here. And then I tear that. And I don't care about that it's too much there. And then we can use this as a reference for a second piece. By the way, this is from an old curtain from my caravan in Austria. When I bought the caravan back in 2019, I think. There have been really, really ugly curtains. I mean, it's white, yes, but oh no. But they have been really ugly, and I have taken them down and then replaced them with nothing because I didn't have curtains then there anymore. This fabric is just perfect for a cover. Here, this is not so good. Wait, give me a second. I need to turn it around and take the other piece from here. So I will quickly cut in here because I don't want to have any tears in here. Oh, this seems to be a 90-degree angle. Oh my goodness, that is crazy. Okay, so then we cut in here so that we have a second piece in the same size. So I have just put them over each other because, you know, that is easier to handle and I don't need so much space. And now I want to try something I have never done before, as nearly always when I make a cover. So here I have some rust water. This is nothing else than water, vinegar, and a few rusty pieces. I've taken apple vinegar. That works totally fine. It smells really nice compared to normal vinegar. And then I have left this here in my craft room for, I think, 2 days or so. It works pretty fast. As you can see, this is already, you know, really rust water. And this is just some coffee. Don't be confused that this is so dark because I already accidentally have put my paintbrush, which I had used for, you know, making other things, for example, dyeing some envelopes. I have accidentally dipped the paintbrush into the rust water and then into the coffee. And what happens then is that the coffee gets really dark and, yeah, almost black. And that's why this already looks a little bit, you know, it already looks a little bit black. But that is exactly what I want. I don't want this brown. I want a really intense, nearly black color. I think that fits really well to the Raggedy Turtle Bloom paper collection, which you, by the way, can find in my shop. And if you have missed the paper premiere, then you have also missed that we have, yeah, some kind of another premiere, because there's a soundtrack coming with this paper collection. The song is also called Raggedy Turtle Bloom, like the paper collection. And you will get that with your papers. If you decide to buy those papers in my shop, then the soundtrack is automatically included in your download. And that soundtrack is something very, very special because I have written that song by myself, and then my wonderful friend Daniel Evans has put his voice to those lyrics. And that is something really, really special to me, and I'm really hoping, or I think I can say we are really hoping that you will like that as well. You have already heard some portions of the song during the videos. If you follow this, then you already know what I'm talking about, but I say that for the people who might be new here, so that you don't miss anything. Oh, and by the way, if you want to listen to what Daniel normally does, check out the description box of this video. There are links to his social media platforms. You can also find him on nearly all of the streaming platforms where you can listen to what he normally does. I mean, singing obviously, yeah, but what he does for the paper collection is probably, I think so, his first junk journal song. So, yeah. This is already a pretty good color. I was not expecting that this is reacting so extremely fast. As I said, I have never done it like this before. So this is now the rust water. And as you can see, when I touch the coffee with the rust water, it immediately reacts. If you don't have rust water, or if you can't handle that for some reasons, I know there are some people who can't handle the smell for some health reasons, then just, you know, take a spray or so, or something else what you could imagine to reach the color you want. Perhaps you don't even want it like this, but here I would suggest, if you have for example the sprays by Ranger and Tim Holtz, you could think about frayed burlap and vintage photo spray stain. I would say that could be a good combination to make it match to the paper collection. So the longer I would leave this here now, the darker it would get. But I think I will take my heat tool now and start drying this. And when this is then, yeah, dry enough to use my iron, then I will iron the rest, because that is obviously way faster than drying this completely with the heat tool. Okay, so I have no time, no patience anymore. This is always my problem. It takes so long to dry something like this. I mean, under normal circumstances, it wouldn't really be a problem. But if you make YouTube videos, you don't have the time to wait for something like this to dry. So I take my iron, which I only use for these kind of problems and not for ironing my clothes. I don't even have another iron because I only buy clothes which don't need to be ironed. That's probably also a phenomenon you have when you have a YouTube channel. But as you can perhaps already see, this gives a lot of interest because of this. Yeah, this is way more hot, obviously. And why? And because of that, I'm assuming that it's because of, no, oh my goodness, look. It's not only because of the heat. This came, oh my goodness, look, oh, I think I've just discovered something new. Here, look, this thread was here. Is there another thread? Look. Oh my goodness, does that mean that we can we? I mean, can we, holy cow, can we put something in between? And I mean, why shouldn't that work? But what could we use? This is one of the reasons why a video like this can never be a tutorial. I have used this stuff in the journal also, because this totally reminds me to turtles. This texture here and these holes remind me to the shell of the turtles, and I want to try to take a piece of this. Hopefully this will not melt with ironing it. Oh my goodness. So let's take this. If this works now, then my plans for the rest of the design of the cover are completely ruined. But how does the song say? You know. Uh-oh. What is this doing? Interesting. Why is it sticking to this? I mean, oh, but it's, I mean, what is it? It's not what I was expecting, but it's more like a giraffe, isn't it? Well, now it is what it is. Let's go on.
You sat alone where restless waves stamp secrets in the silent sand. Like a quiet turtle tucked inside a shell the world can't understand. Your eyes held the horizon, longing for a place to dream. All the hurt you pressed between pages, behind a gentle emerald sheen. I wandered down the shoreline, pockets full of gathered years. Like a quiet turtle, scared to let love tide drown all my tears. But when our shadows touched that dusk in golden trembling light, we peeked out from our hiding place. The whole sea paused that night. We are Raggedy Turtle Bloom. Ooh, shipwrecked souls that chase the sun. Slow with the weathered shells, but now we journey on and on and on. Every page we stitch together, every shell we leave behind. In a world that rushes past us, I found your hand in mine. No storm will ever break apart the bond we made from ruins. We are Raggedy Turtle Bloom, wild and bright, a loving tune.
So then we take our pieces here, a coffee, because, you know, coffee is always very important. And then this needs to go on here somehow. I'm going to use some bookbinder's glue for gluing that. I have this here at the moment. I bought this on Amazon. So this is the name. And now I want to first find the middle of the fabric, because we know it's too long on the left and the right, so that we need to shorten it later a little bit. But I want to do it like this now. Just lay this down here so that I then, you know, now it's in the middle here, so that I then can find the position for these pieces, so that I don't have here this much fabric and here, you know, not enough or so. And then we are going to take this and we will first glue this down, because I want to do something to the spine before I glue it down. So let's put some of that on here. So then we can this here. So then, while this is drying, we are going to take this piece. If you want to make a straight spine, and if you want that this is, you know, not curved but straight, then you can obviously glue all of the pieces to your cover now in this step. But since I want it to be curved, I need to do something else first before I can glue it down. And that is, I'm going to take some water, spritz this with water. And I just realized that I forgot to tell you how thick this is. This is approximately 3 millimeters or so. Yeah, I think so. I usually use 3 or 4 millimeters cardstock to make something like this. Yeah, and when you spritz it with water, you can already feel that you can bend it a little bit. And now we have to travel a little bit, because we need to travel here to the edge of my desk. Please excuse this weird camera perspective and excuse the mess on the floor, but that is how it looks when I have worked a few days on a journal. And now I take this and I bend this around the corner of my table. You could use, for example, a Pringles box or so for this trick as well, or something else which is round. I'm just thinking I could also have used the container of my bookbinder's glue, but it's not the same length like the spine piece is, so this is really handy. And now I don't have enough space, I'm so sorry. I'm just going along here. And carefully bending this until I have the curve I want to have. So then we need to dry this. And when it's dry, it's pretty stiff. Then we are going to need another piece of this material. And now I will quickly run to my big guillotine trimmer to cut some strips, which can then go on here from this material. So that means those strips are also 3 inches wide. And I think, like the spine is, and I think I will alternate between 1/2 inch height and a little less or so. I will, I think, decide that spontaneously when I'm at my paper trimmer, but you can obviously do that like you want. Yeah, there's no specific height needed, and it also depends perhaps a little bit on the width of your spine, how high you want to make these little strips. So here we go. I have even one which is 3/4 inch approximately, and for these I like to just do it like so instead of adding water. I mean, it is doing what it shall do. And then I try to find a nice arrangement here, how I want to glue these down, and then I just use my bookbinder's glue and glue these pieces to the spine. So in here there's also bookbinder's glue, and I'm just taking this now and gluing this down here. Okay, so here we go. Then we can dry this. So when this is completely dry, we can take this back, and I can only recommend to really let this dry, because we will put glue on here now, and we will work the fabric into these little slots here, or not slots, these angles between the things, you know. And if this glue here is not completely dry, that will drive you crazy. Please believe me, I have been there. So then let's take this. And then I should perhaps give you before I do that, give you an information about the slot here. So obviously this needs to go on here like so now, and it needs to be lined up here and here. And this whole thing should then be 90 degrees. So you could do it like so and use your mat as a help. That would be one possibility. You can see this is pretty difficult to do. I like to do is I like to take a ruler, put the longer piece of the ruler here, or the, yeah, well, it's approximately the half, but you know, not like this, because you know, then you can't know where you are and what you're doing, but like this, so that it is really here on the nearly the full length of this. And then you can take this and line that up here. And there are two problems now. The first is it's like this. Yeah, so we need to glue it down here first to make sure, or that's at least my way to do it, to make sure that, oh, I'm sorry, that it is a straight line here, so that it's not like so. And the other thing is it needs to be parallel to this piece. And, oh, that's actually a third problem. We need a slot here, and we need to determine the width of the slot. I like to go with approximately 1/4 of an inch. I know there are people who like to, well, let me show you that with another piece, because this is so round that you can't see it really. I know there are people who take the same material, put this in here, like so, and use the thickness of the material for creating this slot. Meaning, it would be in this case, this, like this amount. The reason for putting the other material in here is that when you close the book, that this piece has enough space so that this can get closed really, really smoothly. And you can see then, well, you can't really see it when it's like so, then this here is touching this. And then there is no slot anymore when the book is closed. That would work, yes. But why am I doing it differently? Really easy reason. Look, when I have this, and I put this on here, and I have my spine here, I can see that I need space in this journal, because this is already pretty thick, and all of my pockets in here are still empty. Here are no tags, no other ephemera in here. So that means when I fill these pockets and the tuck spots and so on, this will get really full. And that's the reason why oh no, what is that? A loose piece. That is the reason why I want to give this book a little bit more room by doing this little trick to give this just a little bit more space. And the other thing is, imagine you would take the fabric later and glue that to the inside. Then it is glued together here, right? But this material also needs space. So it happened to me in the past when this slot was too small that I couldn't make it work, that with the fabric it could still close smoothly. There was always a problem that it was like, you know, it stopped somewhere here and then I need to force it to get closed really. And with this trick to leave a little bit more space, I never had that problem anymore. So I like to do it like that. And it's sturdy anyway. Yeah, when we put glue there and glue everything together, where shall it go? Yeah, it can't travel anywhere. And I make sure that I have glue also in these little areas in between of these strips, so that we don't get into trouble when we you know, want to make sure that the fabric is really there where it shall be. So then I press the ruler against this thing, and I can also use this here to measure where my 1/4 of an inch is, so that I get the correct distance. And to be honest, here I eyeball that. Could you take a second ruler and put that here? Yes, obviously, of course. But if you have done this multiple times, then you know what you are doing. Please believe me. Okay, so then we make sure that it is really on here. We turn this around carefully. we search for these little areas, and then we can already start to do it like this, so that we approximately can see what we are doing here. I mean, you could also put the glue first on the rest, but yeah, I do it a little differently every single time, to be honest. But what I want to make sure is that here this edge is really already pretty nice, so that we don't get into trouble there. So then we take more glue and glue the rest of the fabric to the spine. Okay, so then we can fold this over. Let's double check if in the inside here everything is still parallel. Okay, so that's the case. Then we can take a bone folder or something similar. Could also take your fingernail tool, that would also work, but with a bone folder it's really easy. And now I go along here to make sure that everything is in the correct spot here. This takes a while. If you do that, then you can feel that the fabric is moving a little bit, because what we need to do here is, I guess, we need to stretch the fabric a little bit, because, you know, it needs to go into these little areas here, and that is obviously a difference to if the fabric would be flat. So don't freak out when you do this. Just go on and work this into these little areas. Take your time and just go on, and then the longer you do this, the more you will feel that the glue starts to grab. And that is exactly what you want before you go on with gluing the other piece of the cover. The glue is not dry here yet, so I need to handle this a little bit carefully so that nothing can happen when we now glue the other piece. So for that, we do it exactly the same way. We take this, put glue on there, line it up with the ruler, and then pay attention to the distance, and then we just glue this on. Okay, so then when I have that, I will take this to my sewing machine, because I want to sew around the cover pieces. And since I get a lot of questions about sewing through such a material like this is, please only do this if you know that your sewing machine can do that. Yeah, my sewing machine can do that. It's a really good sewing machine I got from my grandma, and that is really, you know, a high quality machine. And this material is pretty thick, obviously. Perhaps you want to try it out carefully on a test piece or so before sewing through your real cover. And if you're not sure, then, you know, this is just for decoration. It's not really necessary that you do this. So then I want to take Scotch Timber Distress ink, because that is what I also have used for inking the ephemera pieces for the journal. At least those which I already have finished. I want to go around here. And now there are different possibilities, obviously, how to go on with this, which is too much. If this is that much, you could cut in here and tear along here and then fray the rest. You could also go ahead and fray all of this, so take all of these things out now, and then later on, you know, trim that a little bit if it's too long for you. I'm just trying to decide what I want to do. I think I will tear it a tiny little bit, because this is pretty long, even if I want this really frayed. I think it's just too much. That is is better. Here I want to leave it as as irregular as it is. Here it's also fine. So let's cut it off here as well, and then we can take out all of these threads. And yes, this is probably the more time-consuming way, but you have more possibilities when you do it like this, I think, because who can know in the beginning of such a process how this whole thing will turn out? I mean, you are not a fortune teller. And I mean, if you can imagine that, yeah, or if you do the things always the same, then it could be possible that you can imagine how it will turn out. But let's be honest, every junk journal cover turns out differently, even if we have the plan to make two of the same covers. And because of that, I like this flexibility. And sometimes it happens to me that I think I want these things here very long. For example, for my Tattered Bunny collage book, I left these really, really long. And that makes it, of course, yeah, it gives it a totally different vibe for the end result. But this is really cool, isn't it? I mean, look. And that is totally worth the effort in my eyes, that you take these little threads out separately. And now you can do something else, because sometimes this looks a little too tidy somehow. So I like to take my hand and just go over this, and obviously for the rest as well, but I don't want to wreck your nerves. So that we have one example here, and then I will do the rest off camera. And then this looks way more irregular. Can someone please explain to me why the best things always happen when it's like too late? I mean, as a junk journaler, we don't know the word too late, do we? But compare this, please, to this. This was what I had in mind, what I wanted to have. It turned out exactly like what I wanted to have. This here happened because there was some glue, obviously, just the tiniest little bit on the fabric, and I couldn't fray it. But this looks way, way cooler, and it fits so much better to the theme of the journal than this here. I want to freak out. But as I said, there is nothing like too late in junk journaling, and because of that, I will do the following thing off camera. I will take this fabric for the inside, even if I said during this video I'm not sure about it, but now I am sure about it, because that way I can construct something like this here from the inside. So we've learned something. What I will definitely do is I will definitely ink these areas here, but I think you can imagine how I do that. Yeah, I take a brush and then, you know, blending brush, and then I go over these areas so that they stand out more. And then we will see where this whole thing will lead us. But what I want to do, and that is something I always do before I go on with my cover, I take this and I put this in here to get a feeling how this will then be in the end. Yeah. Look, and it was good that we have left this much space here, because when I press here on the top, it's a lot of space, but here on the bottom, it's already pretty full. Oh my goodness. I'm a little bit afraid because the ephemera is not in there yet. I think it went a little bit too much out of control. Perhaps I will need to take some pages out. That was somehow German, the other word. Yeah, so then this is how it approximately will be in the end. And I'm hoping that you could get some inspiration from this. Perhaps you want to make something like this for your own, and so for your own pages. Stay tuned and see you the next time. Have a very great and creative day. Bye.